So the third question comes from Fabio, and Fabio asks, "What is your advice if you start to manage a project that the team is performing zombie scrum or Scrum Zombie and is not using well the Scrum framework, the events, ceremonies, etc.?" So let me drop this question in the chat. All right. So with this question, um, so for those who don't know what zombie scrum is, zombie scrum is something that is experienced on scrum teams where they are just getting started with performing the events and getting used to the accountabilities and basically performing the scrum. They're going to the events, they're going to the retrospective, they're doing the sprints, they making their work transparent, they're doing all the things, but it just feels like it's just mundane and tiresome, and we don't know exactly what is why we're doing what we're doing. So the one thing that I experience usually on scrum teams is where they're trained in, for example, in the daily scrum, that 15-minute time box event at the start of the day or part of the day, to answer these three questions. What'd you do yesterday? What are you doing today? What impediments do you have? As a scrum master, what I'll try to do is I'll try to kind of mix that up a little bit. So if especially if you see these kind of behaviors in retrospective where we're doing this stuff, we have no idea why we're doing it. Well, the idea of the daily scrum, for example, is to form a plan of the day, right? It's not to answer the three questions. It's for the developers to form a plan of the day. So, what I've done before is I've walked the board backwards, and I will say, okay, usually what will happen is that at the end of the board we have done, and then there's a column before that that might be verification or something like that. We have some product backlog items in the verification column. Okay, what are we doing here? Who wants to address this one? What are we doing here in this next one? Who wants to address this? And kind of walk the board backwards to see how can we get things done, and then kind of as a scrum master facilitate that. Okay, how can we move that to the next part of your definition of done? Right? So that's one way to make it effective. Overall, what you should be doing as a scrum master is take it to the team, right? Take it to the team and make sure that they are embracing their process, right? So that they are empowered to make all the decisions to get something done, right? So that retrospective is extremely important to a scrum master, but it's very important to a team too, because they get a chance to inspect and adapt their own process, which is something you don't really do in any other process other than Scrum. I mean, not even Kanban can do that. As a scrum master, your job is to make things transparent. So, in your retrospective, for example, you can say, well, I've noticed that the team has these kind of behaviors, or I noticed that you three go over here often, and you five go over to this area of the team space often, or I see these collaboration behaviors happening. You're just showing stuff that you're noticing. So those are some ways to kind of get out of that zombie scrum. As a scrum master, it's your job to make sure you tell the team why things are the way they are. So why do we have a retrospective? Why do we have a sprint planning? Why do we have a sprint review? Why do we have sprints, right? Go back to those values too, right? The sprint brings focus to be able to create a usable and useful increment, right? So why do we invite stakeholders to our sprint review, right? Very important to have that feedback. That's the most important part of the sprint review, is to have that feedback. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. Fabio, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.